Hi, boys and girls. How are you today? Do you know what? It's a very rainy, dreary day here. So I think it's a perfect day for a story. What do you think? Now, if you remember yesterday, we were talking about walls. Big, giant walls. Now, do you remember why a city would put a wall all the way around it? That's right, to protect it. We talked about walls being for protection because if you lived back here behind the walls, you were very safe. Now, it happened that our story yesterday had this wall in it. Do you know that this is a Bible story? Do you know who this man is down here? This man's name is Joshua. And Joshua and God's people were going to be in a battle with the people who lived behind this wall. But Joshua didn't know how he was going to get inside those walls because they were so very high and so very strong. So God gave him a very strange plan. And it kind of involved having like a little parade. Have you ever gone to a parade and watched the bands and the floats? And it's so much fun. Well, they kind of had a parade all the way around that big city, Jericho, that had those big, strong walls. And you can see all the people. They're way over here, all the way around the city. And God told Joshua to take all the army of God's people and to take this very special box. Can you see that very special? Kind of looks like a little tent. That was called the Ark. And there were some men. Do you see what they're holding? Do you see what they're holding? They're holding these. Have you ever seen anything like this? Try to guess what you think this is. Can I give you a little hint? Does that give you a little hint? It's a horn off of an animal. Do you ever see like bulls or rams? They have big horns, deer. Well, this was a ram's horn. And what they would do in Bible days is they would hollow it all out. See, there's nothing on the inside. And they would put a hole on the end and they would blow into it. And they would use that as a horn. As a horn. It's a little different than the horns we have today. But that's what these men were doing. And for 6 days, they would walk all around that big walled city, and they weren't allowed to make any noise. They weren't allowed to talk. They weren't allowed to whisper. They'd be very quiet. Oh, Miss Kathy would have a hard time with that because I have a hard time being quiet. But they did that for 6 days. And then on the 7th day, they came and they walked around and they walked around and they walked around and they walked around. And the 7th time they walked around, Joshua told the people to shout and to play their horns and yell. And guess what God did? What happened to the walls? They fell down. Now, was the city protected anymore with the walls down? No, it wasn't. God's people could go in there and they could win the battle because God brought those walls down. So that was a good thing that God took those walls down. But in our story yesterday, remember her nickname? Mad. Madeline Gladys Glenn. Remember she swallowed the egg beater? And every time the boys would tease her, she would get so angry and so stirred up that that egg beater would just start going because she couldn't control her temper. She would get too mad. And when we get too mad, the Bible says we're like that city where the walls are broken down and we're not protected. So Mad had to learn about Jesus and how forgiving Jesus was. Even when people were mean to him and even when people spit at him and hit him, he was forgiving. And Mad learned to be glad. And she let Jesus control her a little bit better. Well, today, we're not going to be making any chocolate chip cookies today. I'm sorry, no cookies. Today's story, we're going to do some sewing instead. When our story opens, it's about a family that lives way out on a farm. There's like nobody around them. And there's Hope, her big brother Johnny, and Mommy and Daddy, and they live on this big, big, big farm. And so there's not a lot of people to play with because they're kind of all out there by themselves. And Hope really wants something very badly. Now, Hope's family doesn't have a lot of money. And what Hope really wants is a new doll. She doesn't have any dolls. Girls, do you like to play with dolls? Yes, you do, don't you? Isn't this a beautiful doll? Now, I know boys don't like to play with dolls. They like cars and blocks and stuff. But girls like dolls. And she wanted a new doll, but they just did not have the money for a doll. So Hope was watching her mommy sew one day, and she said, Mommy, do you think you could sew a doll for me? Well, Hope's mommy thought that was a fantastic idea. She said, sure, go ahead upstairs, get my sewing box, and bring it down. So that's what Hope did. Hope went upstairs, got the sewing box. Now, what do you think might be in a sewing box? Can you guess? Can you guess one thing that might be in a sewing box? Let's see if you're right, okay? Did you guess some things? Did you guess scissors? Very good. There's some scissors in there. Did you guess? Oh, do you know what these are? They're very sharp. Needles. You need needles to do some sewing, and they're very pinchy, so you have to be very careful with them. There was some extra fabric in there that Mommy had used and had some left over, so there was some extra, we'll let that hang over. There was some extra pink fabric in there, and she had one of these. One. Do you know what that is? That's a spool of thread. That's what you use to sew clothes with. Oh, there's two. There's an orange. We have a white one. What color is this? Orange. Oh, look at this. You know what color that is? Yellow. So how many spools of thread did Mommy have in her box? Let's count. 1, 2, 3. Which spool of thread is the biggest? The biggest. Yell it out so I can hear you. The white one. Very good. Which spool of thread is the smallest? Oh, the little yellow one. Which color is your favorite? Miss Kathy kind of likes that bright orange in the middle. Which one do you like? Well, anyway, so Hope went up and she got her mommy's sewing box and she said, Mommy, I love this pink material. Could you take that and could you make me a dolly? And Hope's mama said, sure. And she started sewing and she started sewing and pretty soon it started to look like a doll. Oh, Hope thought her mommy must be the smartest person in the whole world, how she can make a beautiful doll out of just fabric. But they needed something to stuff inside the doll. You know how like Miss Kathy has her pillow here and it's stuffed with real nice, soft, cushy stuff. Well, Hope's mommy needed something to put inside the dolly. So she looked around and she went down to the barn. And now on their farm, they raised, do you know what that is? Corn. Now, if you take corn and eat it right away and cook it, maybe Mommy will make corn on the cob, or take it off the cob and make corn for you. It's so good and it's so soft. It's so good. But if you let corn get real old and hard, it looks like this. Can you see? Can you see Miss Kathy's corn? And it's very, very hard. It's almost like popcorn. Do you ever see popcorn seeds? And sometimes the farmers will feed this to their cows, or they'll save it and use it for seed. So the next year when they go to plant their crops, they have some corn seeds to use so that the corn will grow. Now, Hope's mommy thought, well, that corn will be perfect. It'll be perfect stuffing. And so she put it inside the doll, and she went back in the house, and she sewed the head, and she got some buttons to use for the eyes, and she got a little piece of felt for the nose, and she got some extra fabric to make some clothing for the doll. And Hope loved her doll. She was so happy. She took it with her everywhere she went. If she went outside under the tree where her playhouse was, she took her doll with her. If she went to bed, she took her doll with her. She took her doll with her everywhere she went. She loved that doll so much, that special doll that Mommy had made for her. Well, one day, Hope was a little bored with playing with herself, so she went down to the shed to see what her big brother Johnny was doing. Now, Johnny was working on a very special project. Can you guess what he's working on? Can you guess what he's building? Maybe this little line going up will give you a hint. He was building a boat. Now, he wanted to build a boat because Hope and Johnny, their farm was right beside a little, not a big river, but like a stream. And he thought, well, if he got his boat done, he could go down and sail it in the little stream that they had. So he was working so hard on his boat, and Hope was watching, and she thought it was so shiny and so beautiful. She just wanted to reach out and touch it. It was just the most beautiful boat she'd ever seen. Her brother must be very clever. Well, Johnny needed another tool, so he left his boat and he went over to get a tool. And Hope just wanted to touch that boat. So she reached out and she lost her balance. And she stumbled. And she fell right on Johnny's boat. And can you see what happened? Oh, it broke that pole that goes up the middle. See this pole that goes up the middle that holds all the sails? That's called the mast. And when she fell, she broke it. She didn't do it on purpose, but it broke. Now look at Johnny. How do you think Johnny felt? How would you feel if your brother or your sister broke one of your toys? He was so mad. Can you make the sign for mad? He was so mad. He started to yell and holler, Hope, I can't believe you did that. Why did you touch my boat? I don't like you. Why did you? I'm so angry at you. And Hope was crying, and she was so sad, and she got so upset that she dropped her doll, and she ran up to the house just crying and crying, and Johnny could not get himself unangry. He just was boiling mad. Oh, it's going to take me so much time to rebuild that mast, and it was all done. That stupid Hope. Oh, I don't know why I have to have a dumb sister. And he was angry. Now, this was really bad for Johnny because, see, Johnny knew about Jesus. Johnny had asked Jesus to be his Savior. Johnny knew that Jesus came to earth and lived a perfect life. He never sinned. He died on the cross for Johnny's sins. And he didn't stay dead. He rose again so that he could be with Johnny every day. And Johnny, deep down in his heart, he knew that Jesus should control him. But he was so angry. And he looked over, and I told you that Hope had dropped her doll. He saw Hope's doll, and he thought, I'll get even with her. And he grabbed the shovel from the shed, and he took the doll, and he went down by the river, and he dug a hole. What did he do with Hope's doll? He put it in the hole. And when he had put it in the hole, he covered it over with dirt, patted it all down so nobody could see. That'll show her. And he went up to the house, and Hope just happened to be coming out of the house, and she said, Johnny, Johnny, have you seen my doll? I can't find it anywhere. She was crying. She was so sad. And Johnny said, no, I haven't seen it. First he was angry. Now he lied to his sister. He felt so dirty inside. And Hope looked all day for her doll. And that evening when it was supper time, Hope was so upset she could hardly eat. And Mommy looked at Johnny and said, Johnny, have you seen Hope's doll anywhere? Could you help us out? She's really sad. Have you seen it? Was it down in the shed? No, ma'am. Got angry. He lied to Hope. Now he's lying to Mommy. Well, he went to bed that night, but do you think Johnny slept very well? He did not, because he could hear in the next room, Hope was crying. She missed her doll. Oh, that's it, said Johnny. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go down by the stream, I'm going to dig up the doll, I'll put it back in the shed. I got this. I'll take care of it in the morning. Well, in the morning, his dad had a bunch of chores for him to do, so he forgot all about the doll. And the same thing happened in the evening. And every day that went by, it was harder and harder for Johnny to admit that he had taken the doll. Well, Hope was so sad. And the one day Mommy went down because she thought maybe if I pick some strawberries and make a good strawberry pie, maybe that'll cheer Hope up. So she went down by the stream to pick some strawberries, and she saw the strangest thing. And she went and got Johnny. Oh my goodness. Do you remember what I said about what Hope's mommy put inside the doll? What did she put inside the doll? Corn seeds. If you put corn seeds in the ground, what happens? You're right, they start to grow. Well, when Johnny put Hope's doll in the ground and it stayed there for a couple days, look what started to happen. And Mommy saw it. And she said, brought Johnny down and she said, Johnny, look at this strange thing. Oh, Johnny looked at that and his heart just broke. He said, Mommy, I did it. I took the doll. I got so angry. I just couldn't control myself. Hope broke my boat, and I just wanted to get even. And I took her doll and I dug a hole and I buried it. Mommy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I just lost control. And Mommy said, well, here's what we need to do first. Before you tell Hope you're sorry, you need to tell Jesus that you're sorry. So right there on the ground where Johnny had planted Hope's doll, he knelt down and said, Jesus, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I lost control. I'm so sorry that I said mean things to my sister. Please help me to be more forgiving like you so I don't lose my temper like that again. And help me to make this up to Hope. And he went up to the house and he found Hope and he said, Hope, I'm the one that took your doll. I'm the one that ruined your doll. And Hope forgave her brother. And Johnny came up with a really good idea. And he said, Mommy, I've been saving some money because I wanted to buy some nice paint for the side of my boat. So I've been saving my allowances. If I give you all the money I saved, do you think you could buy some new material and make my sister a new doll? Hope was so excited, and Mommy said, I would be glad to do that, Johnny. And she made Hope a brand new doll. Now, I like that story because sometimes brothers and sisters fight. And sometimes we get angry when our brother or our sister takes our toy, or they take something that belongs to us, or they tease us when we're trying to do something and they pester us. And sometimes we want to get very angry. But do you remember where our Bible verse was found? Do you remember this big word? Proverbs. 2 and a 5, 25, a 2 and an 8, 28. Proverbs 25, 28. Do you remember our song, our verse? He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Proverbs 25, verse 28. Do you remember the sign for city? Let me watch. Can you do it? Good job. Make a roof. And remember I said you can make as many buildings in your city as you want to make. You can make big buildings or little buildings. Okay? So let's try it again. Ready? He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Big word. Proverbs 25, verse 28. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Proverbs 25, verse 28. And boys and girls, sometimes we're stuck in the house and we're with our brothers and sisters and mommies and daddies all day long. We can get angry and mad. But Jesus doesn't want us to be angry and mad. He wants us to keep that wall of control up in our hearts. He wants us to be happy, and we should be happy if we have Jesus in our heart. Let's do our verse one more time before we go to bed. Ready? He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Proverbs 25, verse 28. I love you, boys and girls. Be extra kind to your brothers and your sisters and your mommies and daddies today, okay? I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.